Yeah. Now it's in front of the microphone. Yeah, not a lot, but it's my physical media that I have so far. And I'm going to be reviewing all the physical media that I own. Because I have nothing else better to do. I'm going to dip my hands into some unscripted content, see how we do. First off, we're going to move the Blu-rays to the side and start with the DVDs. Because that's how it all began for me. Well, no, that's a lie. Let me give you my VHS tapes. Yes, ancient artifacts in my hand. So, we're going to go way back to the past and do a little bit of some digging. Let me just review all the physical media I have. Alright, first up, of course, Harry Potter. And this damn lighting is crap. Ah! Of course, the first classic, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, if you want to be technical with the title. And it still has the video rental sticker on it from many years ago. From like probably, let me guess, mid-early 2000s, pre-2010. So, yep, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Love it. Childhood classic, and very memorable. Probably more memorable to me than, dare I say, even Prisoner of Azkaban or Chamber of Secrets. I don't talk about animated movies enough, but Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, classic. It's just good old Scooby-Doo shenanigans with a little twist. Another childhood classic, Monsters, Inc. Yeah, I just realized all these VHS that I own is technically just children's films. Is just very nostalgic, and I mean, even the VHS tape's blue. That's amazing, and I'm preserving it. You know, Monsters Inc. on VHS tapes, classic. Love all the monsters. Love Mike Wazowski, Sully, Boo, all that stuff. Oh, they just had a sequel, Space Jam 1. Yeah, I was going to do a review on Space Jam, but figured, you know what? No, I'm just going to leave it as is. I don't have enough ideas or know enough of Looney Tunes to critique it. All I know is that it's a classic, and even though I'm not big into sports or whatever, it was the one movie that told me who Michael Jordan was. A collection of old Mickey cartoons, The Spirit of Mickey. I think it included, if I can remember off the top of my head, it included animated shorts from Disney with like Mickey in the trailer with Donald and Goofy, Mickey in Wonderland, Mickey into the mirror, whatever. It's like he goes into the mirror, stuff like that. And Mickey's band, where he's playing the band and then it starts a hurricane. Those are the only 3 cartoons I can remember off from the VHS. And speaking of Disney, another classic, A Goofy Movie. It captures the essence of high school and father-son bonding on a road trip. Oh boy, I haven't seen this in a while. I used to, as a kid, I was a boy band kind of, whatever, too. It's an NSYNC Behind the Tour thing, where they go through the whole process of how they begin the tour, and you only get, they shaft you by not giving you the whole tour on tape. They only give you 2 songs. Okay, never mind, never mind, I'm lying. They give you 2 performances from the concert, and then 3 or 2 music videos. So I guess it's a pretty good deal, too, and plus I have it preserved here, so it could probably go for a lot of money, but no, I think I'm just going to keep it here. And I think as I keep on reviewing the VHS tapes, it's probably going to stack a little bit more, but I only have 4 more VHS tapes left to go. Not a particular fan of this one, but The Lost World's a good one too. Or I'm pretty sure I had Jurassic Park 1 on VHS somewhere, but I eventually lost it along the way as I was moving houses. So the only one that survived, sadly, was The Lost World. I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't mind it, but I do like it a little bit more than Jurassic Park 3, if I'm being honest. Jeff Goldblum's fun, but the whole story is just not as memorable to me. Jurassic Park 1 and even 3 is a lot more memorable in some aspects. The only reason I don't like Part 3 is that they killed the freaking T-Rex. Spoilers. Oh boy. Jackie Chan's First Strike. I think one of his other American debuts in Hollywood. I don't remember specifically what happens in this movie, but I always get First Strike and Rumble in the Bronx confused. Another one, I probably mentioned this in my review for a different movie, is First Blood. I I don't. This was not mine. It was given to me because no one else who else watches VHS at my grandparents' place. So they gave me First Blood because I rewatched it a bunch, and even though I didn't appreciate it as much as a kid because I liked Rambo 2, First Blood Part 2 much better, I think First Blood is definitely underrated. It's a lot more of a character study rather than just a off the walls action movie. And the last for the VHS collection is Guyver. And if you're wondering why the whole thing is weird, that's because it was taped over. And for those of you unfamiliar with what I mean by tape, it was basically a movie that was sold out. I believe the media here, it was was like a company like Blockbuster or Hollywood Videos, whatever. I think that one Hollywood's local. So they taped it over because I believe the Guyver movie was probably playing on television or something. So, pop in that VHS tape, hit record, and then it wipes the previous movie from here and replaces it with Guyver. It's Guyver 2 Dark Hero on this VHS tape, along with one or two episodes of the Guyver animated series. So, yeah, this is a relic for sure. And that's it for the VHS tapes. On to the DVDs. So after VHS, of course, there came compact discs or DVDs. I don't know what DVD stands for. Put it up here, Anthony. Okay, for the 5 of these movies, I didn't take good care. Well, no, they came in like those books with like CD cases or sleeves. Yeah, so that's whatever. I'll just put a picture right here of it. So for these 5 movies that I'm gonna show next, I made cases for them. So they're not, the disc is there, but they don't have their original cases because these were hand-me-downs. Or I lost the cover along the way as a kid. So the first one is a Clint Eastwood classic, Okay, I need the lighting to be better. Yeah, Fistful of Dollars. Classic Western, Sure, it's a rip-off of Yo Jimbo or whatever, but I like the little Western flair of it. Especially Clint Eastwood. I think he does much better here than he does in the Dollars trilogy. Because he seems more like a mystery. Man with No Name, all that. And is a Western classic. Yeah, so I have a few dollars more. And it has Lee Van Cleef starring alongside Clint Eastwood. And I think it is underrated, for sure. It's an underrated Western. Because it puts it to a different perspective where Clint Eastwood is not the badass in this movie, but it's Lee Van Cleef. And it brings back actors you see from A Fistful of Dollars. And the last of the Dollars trilogy is Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It's a very long movie for me to sit through. I mean, I got into the first 2 hours of it, and I felt like falling asleep. And even though it's supposed to be engaging, it's just, for me, my taste at least, I think I would just rather watch Fistful of Dollars or For a Few Dollars More rather than Good, Bad, and Ugly. Even though you do get that 3-way shoot-off at the end. And then next up is Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. It's a classic. It's your classic stoner movie, of course. And it stars John Cho and Kal Penn. And, of course, John Cho now has a great acting career. Kal Penn's in, like, television. But before they were all that, you get to see them just doing these 2 roles. Okay, maybe the jokes, are not ahead of its time, but the casting is very ahead of its time. It has 2 Asians going on a trip just to eat some hamburgers, and I love that. And next up, Jackie Chan's The Tuxedo. I'm a big fan of Jackie Chan. I love almost all those movies, even though they can be crap. And the highlights is just all the stunts. And for Tuxedo, it's basically that and Jennifer Love Hewitt. And then I'm sad I should have kept better care of this case, but I have Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. The disc gets halfway, 25 minutes into the movie, then it stops working because I didn't take good care of my disc back then. So, but at least it's preserved here. So at least it'll be preserved for me to forever know. And I don't need to say anything else more about that movie because it is a masterpiece. And then my Godzilla collection, which is basically just 3 movies. So we have a hand-me-down, Godzilla Final Wars. And this is when I I was just getting into the kaiju films through Cinemassacre, Monster Madness. So this was the first Godzilla movie I watched, and it is very, very memorable, especially with all the fighting that goes on too. And then in the back of the cover, you can even see like the little diagram of kaijus that are featured in the movie too. I think this was, yeah, Sony released these DVDs of Godzilla's movies, and I think probably mid 2000s. And I think the only one I really got was the Final Wars one, which is an official because, as you'll see, the discs. It has the official disc, and then the official promotion. Whereas these next Godzilla ones I'm going to show, I bought at a marketplace, and they were bootlegs. So they printed, of course, the covers. Yep, you see that? It has the covers. You know, it has the Columbia Pictures logo. But if you open the thing, it's it's copied. So yeah, it's not the official disc. It's just a copied disc. But it still retains the movie quality and all that. Tokyo SOS is probably my current most favorite Mecha Godzilla design. And even though it's a sequel, I think it could still stand alone on its own as its own movie. Nowadays, I don't really look at Godzilla in too much of a awesome light. I prefer it when he was more of a villain rather than a hero, and I kind of like Tokyo SOS for keeping that tradition. Not so much the legendary ones, even though they're okay visually. Godzilla 2000. This one was I don't know why I bought it. I think I just liked the cover art design, because it was basically the 2000s version of Godzilla where he's more he looks more like how he does in Tokyo SOS. Of course, this movie came before Tokyo SOS, but it gave you a new villain or quote-unquote creature for him to fight, but you still saw him as the bad guy, even though he saves the day in the end. I don't know. I feel very indifferent about Godzilla 2000 now that I think about it. Don't have much to say about it. It's not that memorable to me, but just the final confrontation is all I'm there for. Then we have Superman Returns. It's a big love letter to Richard Donner's Superman. I don't mind that at all, but it made Superman just feel kind of lifeless. I feel like Brandon Routh definitely could have given much better characterization, but that wasn't his problem. That was Bryan Singer's directing. Hey, but at least in CW, Brandon Routh was redeemed in the Superman role, so glad about that. Returns, forgettable, but it's a nostalgic piece of my childhood. Next up, RoboCop. Now I know it says RoboCop 2, but it has the discs of RoboCop 1 and 2 in there. Of course, right here. Yep, it has both the discs in there. Two classics, of course, and nobody wants to mention RoboCop 3 nor the remake. Although I will say the remake did have some interesting aspects to explore with RoboCop's character. Now, next up, foreign movie territory, Bruce Lee, My Brother. This was a very interesting movie, even though I think people really didn't like it. I think it explored some interesting avenues of Bruce Lee's younger years when he's still in Hong Kong. It captures that youth essence, you know, a coming-of-age story. Last for the DVD section, of course, Army of Darkness, one of my favorite movies of all time. And I lost the cover for it. It's the director's cut. I lost the cover for it, so last year or 2 years ago, I just decided to just sketch out the entire cover. And I even put in all the cast and all that. I literally could have just printed it out and just put it as a sleeve, but no. I wanted to be a dedicated fanboy and draw it all in. Now, we get to the bulk of, pretty sure you've been seeing it lie over here for a few minutes, getting into the bulk of the physical media. The Blu-rays. Of course, first one is 30th anniversary of Aliens. I recently just watched this again, and it still holds up really well. I've only watched probably like Aliens in bits and pieces as a kid, but rewatching it now as an adult, you can appreciate almost everything that James Cameron did to this. Especially Ridley Scott's alien design and the design for the Queen too. It's just a sci-fi classic. I rarely collect TV shows, but of course, Ash vs. Evil Dead. I had to collect it. It's just has all 3 seasons, and even though we won't ever get a season 4, but we'll be getting a video game. The Evil Dead franchise is just part of my childhood and everything for me. It's just holds a special place in my heart. And next up, Man with the Iron Fist. I had just watched it last year, and I thought it was such a very good movie. Just spectacle. A spectacle for the eyes, spectacle for the ears, in music-wise, because it has RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan starring as the main protagonist, along with other actors like... No, not Dustin Nguyen, he's in the second one. That one sucked. Russell Crowe's in it, Lucy Liu's in it. It's like a 70s kung fu movie brought into modern day with modern stunt choreo. Oh yeah, it even has Byron Mann in there as a villain. And then, another favorite horror movie of mine, The Thing. I love John Carpenter's movies, and I wish he did more, but I think his music is pretty underrated in some aspects, because people usually tend to overlook the music. But I think, aside from his Halloween theme, I think The Thing's theme is just perfect. Sets up a good tone of suspense and just mystery, especially towards the end with the dun 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 dun. I probably didn't do justice to that, but just watch the movie, find out for yourself. Another Paul Verhoeven classic, Total Recall. It was my first, probably I would say, sci-fi movie that I ever watched before Star Wars. I think this movie is what drew me to RoboCop, because it had that just that aesthetic of dirty but like polished special effects and just cyberpunky like textures to it, because it does take place in Mars or Earth, and it has like a cyberpunk feel to it. And the plot, of course, is Arnie getting brainwashed, or at least brainwashed to remember that he's an agent. And a whole bunch of other shit ensues, along with good-ass one-liners. Speaking of Arnie, another Arnie classic I have on here is The Terminator. Of course, I know people like Terminator 2 better, or think Salvation's underrated, but I think the first one stands alone on its own very well. It's more horror movie-esque and not so actiony, and it keeps Arnie as the robotic protagonist. You know, especially since this was one of his breakout roles, you can really... even though you know that he's trying to hide his accent or whatever for being in one of his first acting roles, it really helps with the idea of a cybernetic thing that's come from the future and is trying to blend into human society, especially with how he talks in like a very robotic tone too. One of the most recents, Tenet. Now I know most people probably prefer Inception, but I think Tenet has a little special thing to it, even though it's not as strong story-wise nor message-wise as Inception. Why the hell do I keep blanking on that damn title? Tenet inserts in a interesting movie mechanic while also telling the story in like almost non-linear fashion. And I'll just leave it at that if you haven't seen it. I don't want to speak too much about it. Another classic, Taxi Driver. I was unsure of how I would feel about this movie at first when I first watched it, but after a few rewatches, I'm like, wow, this is actually one of Scorsese's good works. Because you get to see a man basically go from normal to just batshit crazy. And not only that, I like the grittiness and griminess of the 70s New York and how dirty it was. And you can definitely feel it in this movie. I'm not usually one to condone hating video game movies, but this one I really loved. Street Fighter Assassin's Fist. It did everything right. It felt like it was made by the fans, and that's all I'm gonna elaborate, because I already elaborated enough of it in the top 10 current favorite movies list. Then we have Straight Outta Compton. It's a very good coming of age. It's another good coming of age story about, you know, NWA and how they came up with their music and all that. And my most favorite performance in this is Ice Cube Jr. or O'Shea Jackson Jr. in his portrayal of his dad. He's literally playing his dad, and it's kind of meta. And of course, Scarface, a classic. A good story about a bad guy, and then from his rise to the criminal empire to his fall. And then the one I mentioned before that I like the most about from VHS, Rambo First Blood Part 2. This is just fun, dumb, crazy action, and Stallone does really, really great here. Not as in like acting wise, but just being the macho badass while also being the just the normal dude, normal average guy who's brought in on a mission. Another classic, Pulp Fiction. Of course, people say it's the most overrated Tarantino movie or most overrated movie in some people's list, but I really like it, especially the section about the gold watch with Bruce Willis and all that. Just bunch of memorable lines and moments. Another Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I like to see it as the like a time capsule of the '60s, late '60s Hollywood filmmaking progress. Then we have Logan. This is by far the best X-Men movie, and I would say that it is a masterpiece. Just from how it tells Logan being an old man and then how he comes to take care of this little girl and eventually just overcoming all his demons with by being a father figure. Then we have Justice League Snyder Cut. I know, it's part 1 of a part 3 whatever movie, but I would say they did the Justice League characters here a lot more justice when it's given a longer, much longer runtime. You do justice to Superman, Cyborg, a little bit of Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Aquaman. And not to mention they include Darkseid. Another DC movie, Joker. Of course, reminds me of Taxi Driver, and with Joker aesthetic to it. But what I really like most about it is the soundtrack and its visuals. Director Todd Garner just managed to tell such a compelling story. It's almost like a you don't know who's telling the story because they're telling it from their perspective. So it seems like they're feeding you a lie, but then you buy into that lie. I don't know. It's a weird thing. That's why I just like the Joker movie, and that haunting violin is just amazing. Then we have the John Wick trilogy, of course. Being a big fan of action movies myself and the progress that goes into making it, why would I not have John Wick chapters 1 through 3 on my shelf? I mean, it's just dumb fun, but also Keanu being a badass. Then we have my other favorite Tarantino movie, Inglourious Basterds. And it tells about a story of a ragtag team of Jewish soldiers fighting Nazi soldiers. What's not to love about it? And then I have another John Carpenter classic, Halloween, and Halloween 2018. Halloween 1978, of course, classic. One of the originators of the slasher genre. And then, with the remake, of course, the perfect retreading of the story while also making it a sub-sequel. Then we have Gook, which I originally only watched because it was a David So movie, and I love David So and his podcast and all that, and all the stuff he's done. But then this is where I started to like Justin Chan's directing a little more, and especially the story he tells of how interconnected all our communities are, especially with this movie about the LA riots. Then, of course, we have The Godfather duology. I don't say trilogy because I don't count Godfather 3 in it. And I've already talked about these two movies in my top 10 current favorite films. It's about the son eventually becoming the father and how the son learns how to deal with his father's empire. Day of the Dead. One of the underrated George A. Romero films. I like Dawn. I like Night of the Living Dead. Even Night of the Living Dead remake. But Day of the Dead just feels a little different because it's a horror movie that actually scares me to my core and makes me scared of zombies. Like, imagine being inside of an underground military base and there's nowhere else to go. You know, now that I mention it, I need to rewatch this. Then, Django. One of the more modern westerns I only actually own, just because of the story of how it's a slave that becomes free and becomes a badass cowboy, and he partners up with a German dentist when he's actually a bounty hunter. And then you have Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy, just one crazy motherfucker. Then next, collection of all the Daniel Craig Bond movies without No Time to Die. I grew up with Pierce Brosnan's Bond, but then I grew up even more from like my from my preteen years into like my early adult years with Daniel Craig's Bond, and just something about Daniel Craig's James Bond feels more compelling than let's say George Lazenby or Pierce Brosnan or Sean Connery. Daniel Craig just feels a little more grounded and believable, but then later on he gets to be more like the old school Bonds, and that's why I like it, and how interconnected all the stories are when they come to Spectre. And then the Cornetto trilogy, of course, you can't go wrong with that. You have The World's End, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. It's just one of the best trilogy ever, even though the movies have nothing to do with each other. They have the best comedy duo, Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, and it's always a treat when those two are sharing the screen. And no, the classic Commando with Arnie. And this is just like Rambo 2 to me. It's just like a crazy, stupid, fun action movie, and you really just turn off your brains for it and don't mind too much about it, but I just like it because it's so simple and just full of crazy testosterone action. Blade Runner 2049. Now, I know people don't really like 2049 too much, or they think it's overrated, but I think it's a step up from Blade Runner 1. You get to see, the classic character Deckard later on in the movie, but then I really like the character of Kay, and just, being a lonely man myself, you get to feel that, that longing loneliness. And then, of course, how can I have 2049 without the first Blade Runner, the final cut? While I do say I like 2049 better than the first one, just something about that old 80s, special effects aesthetic, cyberpunk aesthetic to this movie just can't be matched with the 2049 one. Because you can actually feel the grittiness and just the whole atmosphere of the first movie. And not to mention, that box art is beautiful. And last for the Blu-ray collection, Avatar. Not The Last Airbender, but the one with the blue natives. This was my first, my first introduction to what high fantasy could be. I mean, sure, Lord of the Rings came later, but this is where I was really more interested in high fantasy elements, such as, like, having their own language and, having their own creatures, culture. And I would say this is what really made me love not just filmmaking, but just storytelling in general. And that's why I have it in part of my collection. And that was my physical media collection. I didn't know what video to make, and I was still in the process of writing the Marvel Knights Cinematic Universe video. So I thought I'd just, do a little off the top of my head video with all my physical media collection. I don't know if I'll be doing another video like this, but I just wanted to do a off the top of my head video like this and just try it out and just see how I work in a different platform and if I'm comfortable with it. Other than that, I think it was very therapeutic, and it did some flex some muscles, creative muscles. So, yeah, if you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, click the bell notification. I finally said that right without screwing up. But yeah, if you enjoy the video, like, subscribe. Other than that, have a good day or night.